Good afternoon and welcome back to the Real Men of Real Estate here on KCAA Radio. I've been talking with Steve Matley, president of Coast to Coast Equities, about land flipping and how that works. So Steve, before we had to go to commercial, you were kind of comparing how land flipping compares to house flipping. And
Yes.
what is the value that you're adding in a land flip?
Okay. So when we before we talked about, we take a piece of land that's, you could have 6 homes on, it's agriculture. We end up with a piece of land you could have 200 homes on, and it's not agriculture. It's a community of homes now. All right. So think about if that was a house flip and
Okay.
you had a 2-bedroom, 3-bath house and you acquired it. And then when you did your fix, when you went to sell it, it was a 100-unit condo building. Okay.
It's
So
sort of a
there,
comparison.
a little bit of a ROI there, right? And that's what
Right.
it is. We go from 6 residences you can have on that 50-something acres to 200 residences you can have
Wow.
in
Okay.
space. So the value is obvious. And what the builder's going to do is the builder can now, they have to do final engineering. So we did tentative, they're going to do the grading engineering and that kind of stuff, the utilities, those things, take them about 90 to 120 days. Record that map. When they record that, that officially breaks that 3 big pieces into the 200 little pieces
Okay.
that now are individual taxable pieces of land with separate deeds. So you can have individual homeowners in there. Okay, that's where the value is. And they can have, like, say, 100, 150, 200, whatever we do, 250, whatever we're doing on the site, whatever's allowed. So that's what we do. Now, if you drove by that site during the whole time we had it, and it could take a couple of years to get that done, maybe more.
Probably not seen any
California takes
work
longer.
happening. Yeah, it
I have
does.
projects taking over 3 years in California. In Florida, that's about 9 to 10 months. Texas, that's maybe 6 months. I've got some stuff in Arizona that honestly I'm pushing through in 3 or 4 months. So it's welcome to California, right? So that's
Yeah,
the
right.
draw here. But that's the value we get. That's the lemon that creates the lemonade. We make the lemonade for the builder because they didn't want to do that. They all can do what
Right.
we do, but they rather us do it because we do all the brain damage for the 2 or 3 years it takes to do that. But if you drove by that piece of property every day while we had it and we're working on it, you would never know anything was going on. It's just an empty piece of land out there. It's got some weeds on it, and you don't think anything of it. And what you don't know is that behind the curtains, it's changing legally.
Okay.
And so we don't have materials, labor, equipment, contractors. We don't have that
Mhm.
stuff. It's all paper. It's all reports and drawings. It's all
So you're
paper.
doing studies, you're doing
All
environmental
overhead.
studies and
Yeah, environmental studies, soil studies, lot
uh
studies, market studies, all these kind of things, cultural studies, everything we need, whatever the local city or county wants to approve what they're doing, to make sure that most of it's based on environmental impacts.
okay.
Traffic, noise, cultural, water, air, all the stuff around it, habitat, vegetation. So they're
Okay.
looking at, and if you're taking fallow agricultural land and turning into housing, that does in fact change the environment, but it's not taking habitat, because that wasn't habitat. The farmers chased the habitat away years and years ago.
Long ago, right.
Vegetation is not an issue because that wasn't natural vegetation there, right? It's so you don't have a natural habitat preserve going on in there or something like that. You got to make sure you're not doing something on an old, ancient burial ground or something, or
hmm Other
anything
sacred lands and things.
historic or cultural. Like, we don't want to make sure we're not doing that, or a historic battlefield or something. We want to do that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
So we make sure that's the place. Make sure there's no hazardous materials. Make sure that the dirt is okay to build on.
hmm
Those, we have to find all those kind of things out. Utilities are accessible, right?
Right.
And then the biggest impact most of those type of projects have, if you're doing homes, production homes, is traffic, because you're going to introduce a lot of cars into the area. And so you're going to mitigate that, widen the streets, put in a traffic signal,
hmm
right?
Probably gonna
You're going to impact schools.
hmm
All of a sudden you've got, 400 new kids coming in or whatever, right? So you're going to pay school fees to build schools. And
I
people
see.
I think underestimate, people that maybe don't like development so much. They don't understand how much of that money goes into public education. It's phenomenal.
Really? You could
Yeah,
talk about that
huge
just
amount.
for a minute. Like I don't even know what question to ask you about that.
Um, I've done it depends where you are. Every jurisdiction
Okay.
is different.
hmm
And there's a couple ways things go. The developers have to put in a certain amount of fees in
Uh-huh.
order to get their approvals. And there's fees at the entitlement level, which is what we do. There's fees at the grading permit level. There's fees at the building certificate occupancy level, right, where you sell the homes. There's fees at different levels that go for parks and recreation, landscape and lighting, streets, schools, flood control, all these different things,
Okay.
police and fire services, all these different things that have to be provided because we're creating more people in the town, right?
Right.
Now, offset that also, what the city is really looking for is when you get enough new rooftops, commercial entities like Walmart and those kind of Costco, they look and say, oh, look, there's enough people out there for us to build a great big place to sell things. And now the city gets the sales tax revenue off of that. They get the business tax, not the sales tax of the state, but the business tax, the business license tax. And
Hmm.
cities make a lot of their money off of that because most of the
Really?
property tax
Okay.
comes from the county and the state. So now the other place you get money is Mello-Roos. You're familiar with that
Yep,
term?
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tax assessments, right? So what happens is there's these bonds that are out there that will help pay for all these different improvements that need to happen to accommodate the growth of the city. And it's the homeowners who buy the homes in there that
Right.
pay
End
for
up
that
paying for
because
all
they're
the
the ones creating the
infrastructure.
impact. That's right.
Gotcha.
They showed up with their,
So,
with
so
their
for
four
for
kids in
new
the
builds,
cars.
people need to watch out for that. The Mello-Roos is going to be another tax that you might
Yeah,
not
but what
expect.
they're doing is they're paying for the improvements that were necessary in order to accommodate them moving into the city because they brought their family and their cars with them. And it
Right.
wasn't just them, there was them and 200 neighbors, right? So
So it's a
that's,
lot.
yeah. So what that does, it does help fund cities to do the necessary services,
Hmm.
improvements they need to do.
Okay. So how much, most of this stuff is laid out. You go into a jurisdiction, you know what they're going to
All
expect
the
you to
fees
do
are
for
all there.
studies
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and there's different layers. So when you go in and let's say you don't necessarily just get approval from the city. The city is it's a government agency, but it acts as a clearinghouse for a bunch of sister agencies because the school district is not the city. It's a different separate agency with its own board, and they actually straddle city lines a lot of times, right?
yeah.
Okay. There's a flood control district. That may be a regional part of the county. That's all that. There may be a separate parks and recreation district if the city doesn't run their own. Okay. There may be what they call landscape and lighting districts, which are kind of like miniature park districts where their job is take care of the stuff the park district doesn't want to take care of, like the medians and the sidewalk areas and those things.
I see.
Somebody's
Okay.
got to pay for that, right?
Hmm.
All that little strip between the boundary wall and the curb.
Right. Right.
And there's a
Just
lawn and there's a sidewalk
incredible
and
amount of
trees.
details actually go into this
Yeah,
sort of planning.
exactly. And then you've got not just, you have an elementary school district and then maybe a high school district and then maybe a community college district. And all of them are impacted. Okay, so now all those receive fees to offset their expenses for the infrastructure that they have to build and maintain as an impact. And that stacks up. It starts adding up. If people want to know why houses are really, really expensive, a lot of the money actually does not go to the sticks, bricks, and blocks. It
Right.
goes
It's,
into the fees and the process.
mhm. Yeah, and
But
I've heard some numbers for a single lot in Southern California, so on the order of 250K in fees and things.
that's right. So
Yeah.
that means if you're, oh my gosh, houses, $500,000 to buy a house. Yeah, but 50% of that didn't go into the house.
Hmm.
But we can complain about that, and we all do. But
Hard not
you have
to.
to look at the other
Hard
side
not
of that.
to.
You go to some areas of the country where they don't do that. And they'll put a bunch of homes in, and there's a single stop sign at an intersection, one lane, one way each way. And the cars are backed up for 25 minutes trying to get through the stop sign because they didn't widen the street. You'd never get down there on a bicycle or a pedestrian. You'd
Hmm.
get killed, right?
Right.
There's no
Dangerous.
curb gutter and storm drain. There's just a ditch on the side of the road between the right. Now you got to build a little bridge to your driveway over the stuff. It's very rural looking stuff, right?
Sure.
It looks kind of schlocky. You don't really have sound walls along where the
Not
is.
along the highways and
Everybody
stuff.
puts
Yeah.
their own version of a fence up, and you got this mishmash of kind of tacky fences along there. That's why those fees are there, is to kind of make things a little nicer and make a better town and make it more
Better
livable.
schools and environment, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you have to go through the process of getting permission to what you want to do. That's what the public hearings are about. And of course, I complain about that because I have to go through these things, and they're
Right.
arduous. They cause a lot of brain damage. But I also understand if you don't do that. You would not want to live in a house where you have your house and you put money into it, you hope it appreciates, you got your family there, And the person next door, they buy a house and then they convert it into some kind of an auto shop or something.
Right. Yeah. There's no code or anything like that.
There's
You could have
noise going
anything.
on, right? People hanging out all the time.
Yep.
And then across the street, they bought an empty lot. Instead of building a house, they put a little building in and put a strip bar in, right? So
Right.
you don't want to live in that, right?
No. In fact, that literally happened to a personal friend of mine here in San Diego in City Heights.
Did it?
There's an
Yeah.
auto shop next to his house now.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's certain,
it's a
and you don't want
disaster.
the CBD place next to the elementary school, right? You don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain things that are perfectly legal businesses and they have a right to do it, but they don't belong in that area.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly, the two things that cause most commotion are churches and schools, which everybody wants in their neighborhood, but nobody wants to live next door to.
Interesting.
You want to live next door to a high school?
I never thought about it. I don't know.
How do you feel about living next door to a high school on Friday night during football season?
Yeah, it's going to be noisy. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of people. Yeah.
And good luck. Yeah. Okay. And then the people that don't want to pay $10 to park their car, they're in front of your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how about the large churches? Every Sunday morning, every wedding, every special event, it's
right.
major.
It just
you can't get in and out of your driveway.
Up.
You can't park anywhere. You can't get back and forth to the grocery store because it's packed. The elementary school with drop off and pickup time. It's a zoo.
Yeah,
so that's why they have to go through a conditional use permit process and get public hearings to get permission to do it in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. So we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we can talk about maybe the next steps and how you find these deals, because I think that's going to be really fascinating for folks who are uninitiated. So thanks for listening, everybody out there in Radio Land. You can find KCAA on your dial at 106.5 FM or 1050 AM, and we will be back just after these messages.